And welcome. This is the Central Florida Computer Society, and it's the Windows Special Interest Group known as the WinSIG for Sunday, August 13th, 2017. We meet once a month. I'm in Bradenton, Florida. However, the meeting is held in the Orlando, Florida area. Today it is in Longwood, Florida, but normally it is in Winter Springs, Florida. And through the magic of the internet, I project or present from my home in Bradenton, Florida, to the group in Orlando. And now we are opening it up and letting others join from around the U.S. and around the world via the internet, as well as recording these so you can look at them later on from either YouTube or from the WinSIG website, which is located at hewie.net, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Well, that's pretty much the background of it. However, I did want to mention, for those of you who are coming online or those of you who are listening to the recording, after my meeting is the general meeting of the Central Florida Computer Society with the presenter, and today they have Oz Ruggles, a former president of CFCS. And if you haven't heard Oz speak, you're in for a treat. And what we've made arrangements that we will stay at this presentation. We'll leave it on and record his presentation and present it live as well. So he's going to share his screen and do his presentation via this Zoom as well later on this afternoon. So hopefully you had the time to stay with us. On that note, we've got a lot to cover. Make sure my clock is right so I can kind of watch the time. And we need to close this out. That's my desktop, and I can turn that off. I'm supposed to be able to turn it off here. There we double click it. And it goes away. There we go. I've got a nice clean desktop. I'm going to bring up my browser. And the meeting notes every month are at the WinSIG portion of Hewie's Views and Reviews, my website, which is at hewie.net. And one of the first things I'm going to show you today is, or not one of the first things anyway, is so there is the website, https://hewie.net. And if you do the /WinSIG, it gets you closer to it, and then you get to the right pages. Before I make the entire page larger, what I would like to show you over here on the right-hand side of the web page, and let's full screen it here. You can subscribe to our mailing list. Let's see, what's this show? Let's see, you're not seeing that. You're not seeing the enlarged. Okay, that's not working. Okay, that's good to know. It doesn't somehow project, so I'm going to go ahead and shut it off. I was trying to do some magnification, and in the program I was using doesn't seem to work on Zoom, so I'm sorry for that. But anyway, over here to the right is where you can subscribe to our mailing list. I'm trying to cut down on emails and places where I post notices of the meetings. So if you would sign in with your email address, first name and last name, one time, and hit subscribe, once or twice a month, you'll get a notice from me of what we've done and a link to what we already have done and what's coming up, and usually at least one kind of tip or trick about Windows or about computing in general. So let's make this bigger, as this is the part we want to be focused in on. And this is full screen, so we make it one more here. Now, I'm going to start out today's meeting with a problem. I've had a couple of problems this past month. The first one I had dealt with my Surface. which is a Microsoft Windows computer, and I've had it for a few years. It came with Windows 7, and I upgraded to Windows 10, and I did the last upgrade to it. However, it has a very small SSD drive, and there's not a lot of room on it. And so what I needed to do was to make more room to be able to do the latest update, the creator update. And I didn't know how much room I would need. And I was down to about 16, well, actually I was down to 13 gigabytes of space on that drive. And I went in and really cleaned it up, and I got up to about 16 gigabytes of space. And I didn't know, I know when I did the upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10, you need 20 gigabytes of space. And I didn't know what I would need to do the creator update from the summer update. And so I'm lucky enough here, within about 10 miles is a Microsoft store that's in Sarasota. I know in the Orlando area there's also a store that you can go to, and they will do service for you for free if it's Windows related. And so I took the Surface, which happens to be somewhere between a small laptop and a tablet, and I took it there, and I said, I want to do the update. How much room do I need to have, and can you help me make more room if I need it? And they said, not a problem. Just leave it here and come back tomorrow and pick it up, and we'll have done it for you. And they did, and it didn't cost a dime. They do software, Windows related fixes and help if they can for free. So if you're lucky enough to have a store nearby, by all means utilize them, especially if it's if you've got a portable, either a laptop, a desktop, a laptop, a notebook, or a Surface, or some other, if you've got a Windows-based tablet, by all means utilize them, bring it in. Even a desktop, you can bring it in, and they'll take a look at it, and if they, barring they don't have to put parts in, and in other words, fix your computer, if it's software related, Windows related, they'll work on it for free and fix it, make sure you're good to go.
And so, Hewie?
Yes.
Let me add one quick thing. You said there's one here in Orlando. There are actually two in Orlando. One's at the Florida Mall way down on Sand Lake on Blossom Trail area, and the other one is at the mall at Millennia, which is also pretty far south from where we are, but they're both available.
Yeah, and by all means use them. They're there, and they want you to. They have plenty of people working in those stores just to be able to do what I'm talking about. Going in and taking a look and seeing what your issues are and what your troubles are. And they'll answer questions. It's best to set up an appointment. And usually those appointments are like 15 or 20 minutes to half an hour apart. So don't expect to be there all day. If it's something they have to work on, they'll just hold it. They'll give you a receipt, and you go back and you pick it up the next day. I have had one situation where I went in, and they did spend about 45 minutes with me, but generally they want to get as many people in as they can, and it is a one-on-one to work with. Okay, that was one of the problems I had this month, was to get that updated. And by the way, it's now running the latest update. The new update is scheduled to come out probably in September, October at the latest. So if you haven't updated yet to the Creator summer version, you want to make sure that's done, because it won't be too long where the Creator fall version, or whatever they call it, will be released, and you'll want to do that update as well. I'm not covering all of the items that you're seeing in some of the websites and magazines and so on what's going to be included, what's not going to be included, because it's still a guessing game. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on items that eventually don't get into the update. So as it gets closer to the final, and we can get a good handle on what's going to be in it. I'll do a session of all of the changes and updates of the fall version of Windows 10. Okay, the other problem I was having this last month is I use Outlook for my email. And Outlook uses the indexing feature of Windows and has for years. If you're not aware of it, that your computer gets indexed. So when you do a search from your computer of files on your computer, it's checking the index. And what an index is, it creates a database of keywords and where that information is stored. And much like Google does when you go to the web and do a search, obviously it doesn't search the web. It goes out and looks at a giant database. It's able to do it very quickly, and actually quicker than you can do one on your computer. But it goes out and looks at this database, and then that database points to where these pieces of information are located. And so I was having a problem with my Outlook when I was doing a search of my emails, and I keep a lot of emails out there. I have 35 email addresses that I view in my Outlook, but I was getting an error message saying that it wasn't doing a complete search, and there would be items missing, and I got to the point where it wasn't finding anything. And just to give you an example of what my Outlook looks like, let's go ahead and let's see, I've got to open this and then click here. And I'll close this. Should have had that open, sorry about that. But let's open up Outlook. Okay, come on. Okay, and you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it or not. Let's see. The OneLoupe doesn't work, so I don't know if the Magnifier will work or not. Let's try that first. Magnifier. Oops. Let's see if you can see that. Nope, I'm looking I'm looking at my Surface and I'm not seeing it show up there either. So apparently the magnifiers don't work through Zoom, and I got to figure out how to shut this thing off now. Try Windows Escape, and that doesn't. That's going to bring up OneLoupe. And now I'm really, hang on a second here. Right mouse click. No, got to do it down here. Okay, come on. Nope. Windows R, I think. No, that's to open it. Well, you can't see it, and it's bothering me because it's in my way. Excuse me. So let's. Nope, that opened up something else. Task Manager, that's okay. Copy, there we go. Hang on a second, this is not letting me do that. Oh, wouldn't you know, I'd have a problem like this, and I can't get out of it. Okay, well, let's see what I can do here. If you'll just give me a moment here. Anyway, I've got 4,223 just in that one email inbox. And so I had, and it wasn't searching it properly. So I need to get out of this.
Just like Ted.
Yep. And
Ted has 10 emails.
Ted has 10, he says.
Yeah. I want to get. I'm seeing a magnifier on my screen, and I can't get out of it. If someone there can do a quick search on closing the magnifier, I would appreciate it. And in the meantime, I'll struggle through it. Huh?
Right close window on the magnifier.
I'm trying to do that, and it won't do it. No. And I'm trying to go down to the bottom in the pad, and it's not letting me do it either.
It's got a closed window right there, right where you are.
Yeah, I know, but it won't. I can't see it. I can't get to it. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. Got it. All right. Got it. Super. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. These little things pop up sometimes. And somebody once commented on my on these presentations that I do. Please understand this is a SIG at a users group meeting, so it's not always going to be perfect. What was happening there is it was the box that you saw on the screen I couldn't get to because it was magnifying it. It was below my screen. It was magnifying below it. Anyway, so when I was doing a search, because you can do a search here and you can do it through the current mailbox, or you can do it through all mailboxes. And what was happening was I was getting an error message. And so I needed to know what to do, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I did some searching, and I did it using the Outlook errors. However, it's actually a Windows issue as well. So if you don't use Outlook, don't not listen. Because it's using the same search index as the Windows uses. And this article kind of looks for that, explains it. But what you have to do is you have to find your indexed locations and then tell it to re-index. And I'm trying to see, let's see, Outlook options. You can do it in Outlook, or you can, there are several ways you can do it. And I just closed my Outlook, so I won't do it. But let's go ahead and make this larger so you can see this. But when you do the Outlook options under search, current folder, current mailbox, searching from there, and then you come down and then you index locations. Well, there's a lot of places where you can do this, file, options, and search, but we'll find another place where you can do this as well. And then you can redo the index. And there's also the possibility that it's a Pst corruption, and if so, you run a program called scanpst.exe. Pst is the name of the file that Outlook uses for all of the emails and information. And I even ran that on several of the email addresses. Prior to 2000, and I think it was Office 2010, Office used one PST file for all your email. If you had multiple email accounts, they were all in one PST file. Now they have a separate PST file for each of the addresses. And so I had to go into several of them and run that scan PST, but that still didn't clear up my issue. So let's look at one of these others now, how to rebuild the index. And this is how you can rebuild the index of your computer. And again, this wants to go to it through Outlook. So let's go back and re-index by the instant search. Let's do this one. This article is a little bit better. Rebuild your index for your complete search. So what's indexing? And it explains what indexing is. By the way, this is support from office.com, which is Microsoft. So it's a catalog, same as an index in a book, is what I tried to describe earlier, and I didn't say it like that. Now, what data is included? This is how you can see what you and control what's in it. And so it says to go to File, Options, and Search and Sources, but there's also another way in which you can do it. And let's see if that's best way to do it is to come here and go to Settings. Now, in some of the articles I read, it said to go into Systems and find Search, but it's actually under, that wasn't Apps. Maybe it is under System. Yes. Storage, no. So let's do Find a Setting, Search. Let's search for Search. Windows Update Settings. There we go. All right, it's under Home. And then this is Cortana's storage, but under Display. And that's Cortana. Well, let's try it one more time. It worked earlier when I went looking for it. Change search options for files and folders. There we go. Okay, it's in the control panel is where you have to go look for. You have to get to the control panel. There's another way you can get to control panel is by clicking your start button with the right mouse button. If you have an earlier version of Windows 10 other than the creator version, you will find the control panel in the listing that's under right mouse click. If not, what you have to do is just type in down here control panel and then go to control panel. And there you can go to, you can find your indexing options and find it there. You'll notice I have 606,842 items indexed. You can modify and change what's indexed. You'll notice that Outlook is there in my data D drive, which is where I have all my data and my documents, my downloads, and so on are all being indexed. And you can add or remove or tell it not to index certain things. I started my indexing, I believe it was on a Sunday or a Monday, and left the computer on, had it so it didn't power down by itself or go into hibernation, and it was around Friday that it finished indexing. So it does take a while if you have a lot of files. As I say, I have 600,000 files, so it took a long time to do the indexing. Obviously, yours shouldn't take that long. And even then, I was still getting the error messages, but I let it, because it did finish the indexing, I knew that there was probably going to be some more items it's going to do in the background, and so let me see what happens. And so now when I go to Outlook, I don't get the error messages I was getting. So it worked. But it did take me over a week of doing nothing on the computer except having it indexed. So that's something that you can do. So you can re-index, and I think I've got that here open. You can re-index, you tell it to re-index, and it should work. I hope you don't have any questions on that. Is there any questions on that at all?
Yeah. What's the advantage of indexing?
Why do it, he says.
For speed, to search your computer. If you want to search, for instance, CFCS, now for whatever reason on mine, it doesn't do it automatically. I have to go into the filters. But if I go into the filters and then documents, it's going out and finding all the documents that I've got CFCS located in, at least some of them. And so you can find it quickly and easily. So if you don't have many, or it's not working properly, there are some other ways in which you can search your computer. And the one I showed, I think, a couple of months ago, let's go ahead and we can close this up. Now we'll close this and close this. A program I use is one called Search My Files. And I picked this up at the Sarasota Technology User Group, which is the old Sarasota Computer User Group. Yeah, let's see, can you see that? Yeah, you're seeing it. And you'll see that I get search items, and all I do under this files wildcard, I can search for CFCS, tell it to start the search, and you'll see that down here, it's going out and it's actually searching the drive. It's doing very quickly, but it is able to search all of the files, and it doesn't take very long to do my entire drive, or a couple of drives that I have. And right now it's up to 429 different items with the name CFCS in it. While it's doing it, there's some other things that you can do. I can exclude certain folders. For instance, the L drive is just a backup drive, so I don't need to check it because it's only the same things. I have a database of duplicates, and I don't need that. And I'm only searching the D drive, which is my data drive. So if the items are on C, I'd have to change that. But I keep most of my files on D, and I'll show you that in just a moment and why. But you can see I'm up to almost 800 instances of CFCS, 792, and it's still working because it still shows the word stop. Yep. And it gives me where they are and when they were last modified and so on. So it's a great, and that program is free. And I've showed it before. Oh, I got to tell it to stop before it will close. Oh, I got 880 files, probably more. But that's the a search program that I use because for whatever reason, my indexing, I've got so many files that it's just not working the way I would like it to work. I was going to show you the OneLoupe magnifier and ZoomIt and the magnifier in Windows 10. Apparently Zoom doesn't like that, so I'm not going to do that. But what I would like to do, and I didn't put it in my notes, so let's go back, and I have, let's see where to go here. SIG. Thought I had it here.
Huey,
Yes.
you skipped over one of the items shortly after this indexing issue, and it was how to increase space on a Windows 10 machine.
That's what I'm going to show you now. Yeah, I was
And I'd
looking.
like to
I have a
see that
file to
because-
start out before I do that, and I thought it was supposed to be right here, and it isn't. So let me go find it.
But a comment that I wanted to make, when you have 603,000 files on your computer, I really would think that the vast majority of that are Windows files and program files, your data files. And you had 800 in CFCS with that in the title. But I guess the other issue is being able to search within your Outlook mail issues, because those are not separate files if they're in a PST file. So that's a totally different issue.
It's using the Outlook and the computer use the same index because it does find the emails as well. I'm quite sure. But let me go into documents. Let me SIG and today's date. And what did I do with those? I hope I didn't delete it. I bet I did. Let's go up to the recycle bin and see if I did. Come on. I may have, maybe I didn't save it. Come on, recycle. There you go. Yeah. Nope, I guess I didn't save it. So let's just open up PowerPoint and find it there. I've got some slides that I want to show you. If worse comes to worse, I know where the slides are, so where the pictures are. There it is. Okay, and let's full screen this. And then I'll go to that article. This is what I want to show you first. I needed to clean my hard drive. And the reason why is I have an SSD drive and I have two hard drives. I got an SSD drive, which is 193 gigabytes, and I have used 180 of it, or almost 180 of it. So I only have 13 gigabytes free. Not a lot, because that's where I store, where Windows stores all of its programs, all of its files. When you install new programs, that's where it installs, and some programs keep their files there as well. And because it's a small file, or a small hard drive, what I've done is I keep most of my data out on my D drive. My D drive is 1 terabyte, or 931 gigabytes, but it's getting full as well. When I say getting full, I have 256 gigabytes free, but still it's 3/4 full. No, I'm 2/3 full. And so I want to clean up some of my files. And so how do I do that? Well, one of the things that you can do is you can go out and look to see what your storage is, and I'll show you how you get to this from that article. But what I did is I went out to take a look at where my files are, and on my C drive, which is 194 gigabytes big, 83 of those gigabytes are apps and games. 50 gigabytes is system and reserved, and other is 34.4, and then there's temporary files, and then smaller pieces and parts. So it really breaks it down. This storage usage is in the Windows settings, and I'm going to show you how to get to there. I also looked at the one, you can also go to a place that would then say remove information, and I said, okay, let's remove some temporary files, and I had 1.93 gigabytes in temporary. Oh, let's see, this was after I did it. Let's go back. Notice in temporary files I had 7.58. Here I've got 1.93. So when I deleted my temporary files, I freed up about 7 gigabytes. The recycle bin, it doesn't show it here, but the recycle bin was 5.3 gigabytes, and when I emptied it, of course, that freed it up, but that can fill up again quite quickly. Previous version of Windows, it looks like I've already deleted that because it's only 176K. And there's some pending updates and preview builds of about 281 megabytes, which is negligible. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the things that was on my D drive, or it was on my C drive, let's go back to it again here, was on my C drive under Other. That's where my Dropbox stored all of its files. If you're not aware of it, Dropbox makes a duplicate on your hard drive of what is out on the cloud. And so if I've got 15 gigabytes of space on Dropbox, so I'm going to use, probably if I use it all, I'm going to have 15 gigabytes of space on my hard drive. And I'm pretty close to it. So, and I did this also to my documents folder, and I did it to my downloads folder and so on. I moved them, had Windows move them from C to D. And so my default download folder now is on D. And you can do that within Windows. And so what I told it to do was to move the Dropbox folder from C to D. I put what location I wanted. Let's see, is it my mouse showing up here? Yeah. Where it's grayed out here, but you click move and you put where you want it to move to, and select which folders to sync with this computer, and then unlink this Dropbox. I don't want to do either of those, but what I wanted to do was move them from where they were to from C, and I wanted to then click the move, and let's see what just happened. That's where the location was, and I said I'd move it, and I said I want to move it to D. And so it started to move them. There are 13,700 files in my Dropbox. When I did this picture snap there, it completed 814 of them, or about 5%. And it finished it. So now my other drops down from 30-something gigabytes to 20 gigabytes. So that almost 15 gigabytes moved from C to D, and I'm not concerned about D as well. So it freed up that quite a bit of information. So now let's go back to the article that tells you how to do all of that. No, I wanted to close that, sorry. So let's go back here. And 5 tips to free up your hard drive space. One way to free up hard drive space, of course, is delete unnecessary files. And there's a lot of ways in which you can do that. And there's a guide, tips on how to reclaim some hard drive space on your hard drive. But you saw this particular picture similar to what I had. Tells you how much storage is on the drive, and then how much is on your second drive. And to show you that on mine, settings, and under system and storage. So I'm down to 163 of 194 now, and I'm using 636 out of 931. So there's several things that you can do here and change how we free up space, because Windows does free up some space. So, but you can then go to, let's hit escape. Somebody's mic is on. Is that all? No, it's okay. All right. So while storage devices keep getting larger, gigabytes need to be freed. And so you can, first of all, delete some unnecessary files. Delete the file history versions. I tried this on mine, and I don't have, it's not keeping track of file history versions. But you go to the Windows key and X, go to the control panel, and you want to go, and you can actually turn that on and off. Mine I can't show you because I don't have it turned on, and it didn't show me a way to turn it on. And I don't want it turned on. But you can also uninstall apps you don't need. So you go into your system, and then this says system and then apps. But when you go to, let's go back here. In the older Windows 10, you went to system and then apps, but now there's actually an apps location, and then go to apps features, and what you'll see are all of your apps and how much space the actual app takes. But a lot of these apps have a lot of files of information that they store. And some of them store it on your C drive in their own folder. And what you have to do then is decide which ones they are. But my first thing that I did is I went through here and I tried to find any programs that I don't use or haven't used or don't think I'm going to use. And by double clicking on one of these, it will then say, okay, do you want to update it, or do you want to remove it? And or uninstall it, and I uninstall it. And as you can see, I've got a lot of programs installed on this computer. It's my main computer. So I have a lot of things installed on here. I've already deleted programs that I don't want on here. So I can't show you any, but if there was, let's just see tool, I don't know what that is. Let's just take this and I'm going to double click it. When I double click it, the uninstall comes up and I could just click that and it'll uninstall it. Or if possible, I could modify it. So,
Joey,
yes.
did you accidentally delete something that you subsequently found you shouldn't have?
Can you?
I said, have you? And when you went through looking for space, did you find something that looked like you didn't need it and then you discovered that you did?
Yes. Oh, no, I didn't. But you can also reinstall it. So that's not a big deal.
How would you reinstall it?
We go back and download the latest version, or if you already have it. As an example, what I do is, and one reason why my hard drive is quite full, so I go down to my downloads. You will see I make a folder for each program that I download, and then in some of these, like this one, you'll see different versions of the same one, a manual. So what I do is every time I download a program, I don't store them in the download folder. I make a subfolder for them, and I, let's see, I'm just trying to think of a program I might have several versions of. Dropbox one, I don't know. No. But if I don't have the version number, I may put the date on it. Fences, let's see. Just trying to look for a program. Yeah, okay, there's 2.13, 3.1. So I could probably go through a lot of these and delete older versions, but for some reason or other, I just don't do that. It takes time.
I keep my downloads folder on my data drive.
And that's where mine is. Mine is on my D drive. If you move up PC, I have a data drive, and that's the one that's 1 terabyte, and that holds, as I double click it, that holds my documents and my downloads. And I moved them the same way I moved that Dropbox folder that I showed you. The way I did it is I went to it. So if I went to something on C, let's go to my C drive, then go into the user, and if I go into me, and then let's say the document, there is a documents folder there, but it's not the one I use. But let's say in the Dropbox is one I've already moved, so I don't want to do that. But let's take this. If I take it, trying to think how I did it now. Properties. Come on. And then it sharing, security, previous versions, and customize. If you go into customize, folder options, now I can't remember where you're able to move some of them to a different drive, and it will move in all the pointers to them. So all of the files not only get moved, but it does as well. That's in that article on how to do that. I'm not sure whether I can just do it with any. But so I do, as I mentioned, I have most of my data files are on D for that reason. So you want to uninstall any programs you don't need. You want to delete duplicate photos. And I say this, and I can't do that, or I don't do that, because when I take a whole bunch of photos at an event, I create a folder and I call it whatever the event is. Then I make 2 other folders. I call one edit and one use. And I make copies of all of those pictures again. And then I go in and I edit the ones that I want to edit. I delete the ones I don't want to have. And then I save them. And then if any I want to upload to Facebook or I want to put on Flickr, I copy them into my use folder. So I can have, on a lot of my pictures, I have at least 3 copies just in the one folder for that event. and I don't go back and clean it up. So that's why I get large drives. And the reason I don't use any of the programs to delete duplicates is because there are some of those, some are the original, and then in the edited folder is the same name, but it's been edited. So they are actually different, even though I haven't changed their names. Sometimes I'll add an A or a 1 or a 2 after the title, just so I know that it's a different version than the original. And then when I move them, when I copy them over to the use folder, sometimes I rename them, sometimes I don't. So that makes it difficult for me to get rid of duplicate photos. And then delete previous installation of Windows, and I don't have that, but what you may find is a Windows 10.old, and that Windows 10.old file could be 10 or 20 gigabytes. And you want to make sure before that gets deleted that you don't want to revert back to it, because it keeps it. So if you want to revert back to that older version of Windows, you're able to. Any questions? I just threw a lot at you. So I can understand why you aren't asking any questions. I did get a message from somebody online. Do you use a command line for disk cleanup? I do not. There are ways to do that as well. And there's a lot of articles out there about that. Bob, you're a little more advanced than I am. I know you do a lot on the command line usage. I do not. I try to use programs just to protect myself. And some of the articles that you find to fix things want to go in and go into the into regedit and edit the registry. I try to avoid that, and I especially avoid recommending people do that because it can get you in serious trouble if you don't know what you're doing. And it can get you in serious trouble if you hit the wrong key or you do something or you delete something by mistake, you make a change in something, your computer can stop working. So I don't recommend people going and doing that. Notice I just got a new mail in, and I was going to do this in the beginning, and I didn't do it. So let me finish up my thought here. So anyway, I don't recommend people going into regedit unless you really know what you're doing and do a backup of the registry before you do that. So I don't do that. So if you see any of the files that I show on how to do something, and if one of the choices is to go into the registry, I don't do that, and I don't recommend you do it unless you really know what you're doing. Okay, the other thing I was going to show at the beginning of this was I was going to go out and click on my notifications, and you notice they keep popping up, and I don't want them to. So what I should have done, and what I was going to do at the beginning, is if you right mouse your notifications button down in the bottom right, you can turn on quiet hours. So I just turned them on. So now when I click on that, let's make sure that there's turn off quiet hours. So if anything comes in, I won't get any notifications. And I should have done that at the beginning of this, so those little things didn't pop up on the screen. So anyway, so where are we? We're almost to the last item, which can take about a week to cover, but I want to cover it. But before I do, I want to make sure there's no questions about any of the things I've covered.
What is the philosophy behind putting everything on the D file?
Can someone repeat that closer to the mic so I could understand what?
Yeah, Sandy asked what the philosophy is of putting what data on the D drive.
I've got almost all of my data on the D drive. Then I only have to back that up for the data. However, I do obviously back up the C drive as well, and I do a image backup of both. But the D drive, a lot of the D drive, I also back up to the cloud. And I've talked about that. I'm using something called iDrive, and I pay for it by the year. It's quite inexpensive. And originally they sent me a hard drive, and I backed up all of the folders that I wanted to have backed up, sent it back to them, so I didn't have to upload it through the internet, which would have been very slow and would have taken weeks and weeks, because it was around 33 gigabytes. It was more than that. I think it's 300 gigabytes that I've got stored up there. And so, and the same thing is that if my hard drive crashes and I need to get that right away, they'll ship a hard drive with everything on it to me, as opposed to me trying to download 300 gigabytes.
Huey,
Yes.
I'll put in my 2 cents. I have 2 physical drives, which also makes some sense, in the C drive and the D drive. The C drive is a solid state drive. The D drive is a rotating drive. And so separating them, you don't need as large a C drive if it's only being used for system storage. The D drive that you'll have all your photos and everything on, documents and so forth, can get quite large. So you can reduce the need for a large C drive if you have 2 separate drives. Second, if you're doing backups, typically the backups that you are most concerned about are your data. The information on your system drive doesn't change that frequently. So if you wanted to separate backups, system backups from data backups, you can do that easily if you split them into 2 different drives.
Okay, in essence, for the people at home that may not have been able to hear him, I could barely hear him, but I think I did hear him. He basically said that he's doing the same thing I'm doing. He's got a C drive and a D drive, and D drive is where he stores all of his documents and data information. His C drive is like mine, an SSD drive, a solid state drive, and his D drive is a mechanical or a regular hard drive. It's got the disks and so on. Mine happens to be 1 terabyte. I have a very small compact computer that actually sits on the back of my monitor. It's about the size of not even half of a cigar box. And so there's not much room in it. The SSD drives are very, very fast. But they are smaller, and of course they're getting bigger now. You can buy them bigger. They're expensive. But mine is it's about 200 and I think they call it 225 gigabyte, but it's in essence is 194 according to the system. And just keeping programs and the operating system and very little else, it's about 2/3 full. So you can, if you're installing a lot of programs like I do to test and so on, you can fill that up quite quickly. And so that's where I'm running into a problem, Dick, and why I've moved even more over to the D drive. But like you, my storage is all of my documents, all of my downloads automatically go to the D drive. And like you said, that information changes quite quickly, so that's what I back up to the cloud, and gets backed up almost every night. Any changes or additions are getting backed up to the cloud. And then I probably do an image disk of my D drive more often than I do my C drive, only because that information is changing on a regular basis. You're correct. Okay, so what I want to show you here is, here's my C drive, and you can see it's less than 200 gigabytes. It is an SSD drive, and you don't want to get it too full, but it's there. It's very fast, and like we saw, that I've got a lot of files, a lot of programs installed on this computer, and that's where they all reside. Okay, the last of the pages that that I discovered this past month, it can be years of discovery. It's called How to Use Windows 10. It was published on August 1st, so it's quite up to date. The topics are Windows 10 Basics, Customize Windows 10. I can make this bigger because it's a web page. There we go. Customize Windows 10, fix annoyances and problems, Cortana tips, Edge browser tips, performance and productivity, security and networking, storage and backup, and file explorer tips. So lots and lots of information, about 100 different Windows tips and of Windows 10. So let's take a look at some of the basics. 7 settings to change right away. So if you haven't done any of these, you might want to go in and take a look at this. The first one, Microsoft Windows operating system 10 operating system offers a lot of compelling features. You want to enable system protection, create a restore point. When I read this article this week, I went out and looked at my restore point. I didn't have one. When apparently when I did the creator version update, it not only eliminated all of my other restore points, it turned it off. So by looking at this article and it telling me how to go about doing it, in the Windows search box, I did a restore point, I did a look for it, and when I went to create it, it says, you don't even have it set up to do that. So I went ahead and set it up. And since this article tells you how to do that and how to configure it. So you might want to check to make sure that you do have a recent restore point. And every once in a while, especially before you're installing something new, installing something you're not familiar with, doing any kind of an update, always set a restore point. And you may have several. I was working on somebody's computer last week here in my neighborhood, and we went back. He couldn't get into his computer properly, and I was able to get into his computer through safe mode because it was Windows 7. And I got into it, and I got to where the restore points were, and I went to the last restore point and tried it, and the problem didn't disappear. So I went back one more restore point, one older one, and did it, and the problem went away. So sometimes the most recent one doesn't eliminate what the problem is. Sometimes it doesn't eliminate it at all, but it's something at least you can try. And you want to turn on the system protection and use the defaults and create a restore point. And that's what I did. I clicked on create, and I got a restore point. And you can put a name to it, so I marked the date, when it was, and why I did it, and it gave me a restore point, and it said it was successfully created. Another thing that I always check when I get a new computer, or if I'm even working on somebody's computer, show file extensions and hidden files. Microsoft, in its infinite wisdom, thinks you shouldn't be bothered by file extensions. But, you know, I don't believe that. And the reason I don't is a lot of times you can have a text file and a picture file with the same name, and it's sometimes difficult to know which one's which. And so the best thing to do is to have the extensions turned on. And what you do is you navigate to the control panel, and in the control panel you want to go to open the File Explorer options. File Explorer options, or you can just go to File Explorer options. And under View, you want to open each folder in the same window, or you can open it in its own window. But what you want to do is you want to go to the View tab. When you go to the View tab, where it says Show Hidden Files, Folders, and Drives, you probably want to turn that on. But you also want to
Uncheck
Display-
file extension,
Right.
hide extension.
Yes. And you want to make sure that's unchecked. And it's right here. Hide folder, merge conflicts. Let's see, hide empty drives and hide extensions for known file types. You want to probably click both of those. So if you've got an empty drive, or you've got an empty that you plug in and you want to add something to it, it'll show it. So sometimes if you plug in a USB drive and it doesn't show it, it could be because it's an empty drive and you've got it set to hide empty drives. So you want to make sure that that's not checked, and you want to make sure that hide extensions for known file types are not shown. And when you do, it will then work. Disable user account control, I'm not going to talk about that, and you probably shouldn't do it.
Never did.
I just got some kind of a notice. Okay, on my computer it's an error message from something, I'm not sure what causes it. Anyway, slide down the slider to never notify and user account. Okay, disable the lock screen. If you don't want your screen to lock when you turn off your, if you close your laptop and when you open it, it's locked, you can turn that off. But again, it says to open the registry editor. So I'm not going to talk about that because I don't recommend that you do that unless you know what you're doing. Now, change your default browser. You can change your default browser. Most of them come up and they say, you're using Chrome and it's not your default browser. Do you want to make it your default browser? And you can do that, and that will change it as well. But there's a way in which you can do it, and that is go to Settings, and then it says, again, this says Settings, but what you're not going to go to System. You go to Settings, and in the newest version, you go to Apps, and then go to Default Apps, and you can change your web browser. Mine is Chrome right now. If I click on that, I could change it to any one of these, or I could find another one in the App Store and change my own. But it knows that I have all of these browsers online, so I could choose any one of those and make that my default browser. Right now, I don't have a video player as a default. If I wanted to, I click on the plus. It's going out looking to look at all of the video programs that I have, and I could make, say, VLC my media player of choice, and when I did that, that would be the default one. Same thing with the photo viewer. I don't have one. When I click on it, it's going out and figuring out which programs I have used to open up photos. And I have in Pixio Photo Editor, I have Irfan View, I have Movie Maker, and I have Paint. And so any of those can be used as a viewer. I have Maps, and I have the music player, Groove Music, right now. And so that's how you can change your default apps easily. And they're recommending that as well. Stan, do you want me to wrap it up?
Yes, Oz has just arrived, and yes.
Hey, Hewie.
Yes. Hello, Oz. Okay, folks, before we leave, for anyone who has joined us late, we're going to continue and record Oz's presentation. And so we're going to be online for Oz's presentation. So those of you who are online, if you want to stay and listen to a dynamic speaker and talk about a lot of tips and tricks and so on that you can do with your computers and your phones and technology in general, stay tuned for Oz. We're going to take a short break, but I am going to go to my close out screen so we can close the video. And then we'll end the recording at this point and say thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month. And I'm going to stop my